Released just a year before we landed on the moon, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey is hailed today as not only as the grandest of science fiction films, but as one of the greatest and influential films, period. So when I first saw this nearly 10 years ago, I had very mixed feelings about it. While I thought that the special effects were incredible, I did not understand what the film was really about. I remember feeling indifferent about it because I could not connect with any of the characters or the obscure message that I thought the film was trying to convey by the end. Now, several years later, where I have matured a bit and have had film studies as my major in college with classes such as film theory, I can safely say that my opinion now hasn't changed all that much apart from having some appreciation in its impact on film history. As such, I do feel a little bad about that. Now, if you ask me what the story or plot is about, I would be hard pressed to describe it in as few sentences as I can because there isn't really a defined plot to the whole film. At least, that's how I see it. This is one of those movies where watching it for yourself, would you get what it's trying to do, and one viewing probably would not be enough for most people. Pretty much, it tells the story of human accomplishment, from the beginning where men were primordial primates discovering the art of tool making to men's trek into outer space. This is during the time period where Star Trek was all the rage and the space race between the US and the Soviet Union kept people's attention to the heavens above. With the film showing the relationship between humans and technology, I think this film speaks just as much, if not more so, to today's people as it did to people back in 1968, especially with the thought of artificial intelligence, which many today's scientists has begun to warn against the creation of. Like I said, I can't really begin to describe what the movie is really about, but I can say that this movie tests my patience whenever I watch it. This is a 2.5 hour film that feels like 4 because the pacing is so damn slow. It takes its time with each shot in each scene, all used to help immerse the viewer into the silence and vastness of space. While all of that is impressive and even beautiful to look at and sometimes jaw-dropping in its executions, and I usually prefer a slower paced film if it calls for it, the reason why I'm kinda bugged by this is because the story itself just stands still for minutes on end while the sequence of the ship traveling slower than a snail through space just takes over the film, and that can get pretty boring for me. And don't get me started in the last 30 minutes of the film where it just goes into full-on blank slate for the audience to decipher what it's all about based on the images, and I haven't a fucking clue what Kubrick was trying to say. I've got some ideas, but even I couldn't begin to tell you how it all fits from what I've seen. The ending is so open-ended that any explanation would have sufficed for me, but at the same time I don't want to know what it's supposed to be about because it may make me hate the movie. With all that said, the look of the film is amazing. I mean, downright incredible at points. Accompanied with classical music, this is on Fantasia level in terms of beauty, artistry, and in just sheer brilliance. This is probably the closest thing for the majority of people on Earth who can experience space in all of its wonder and glory, and it is just wonderful in its imagination and workmanship. If this movie was all just this without the plot and story, I probably would, strangely enough, like this a little bit more. I know that sounds odd, but that's how I found the story, not all that interesting to me. Now, of course, the most memorable part and the one that does hold my attention is this segment with HAL 9000. This part would have worked as a standalone film as HAL, with his monotonous tone and ability to control practically the entire ship, made it a rather suspenseful event that brought a little bit of life and excitement to the whole picture. Again, the film does take its time with its slow moments, but because of the change in atmosphere with HAL going haywire as he takes out the majority of the crew because of threats of being shut down, does add a sense of slowly rising tension between him and the lone survivor. It's a nice jolt to my senses that saves it from me losing all interest in this movie. I know it sounds incredible that I don't love this film as so many people do, as it is hailed as one of the greatest ever made, but I'm just not interested with it. I do recognize its greatness, however, because the look still holds up today, and its flawless use of practical effects makes it look more realistic than most movies made today, so on a critical level, I can say that it is a great movie. But on a more personal level, I didn't get a whole lot out of it, which is a shame because I do love Stanley Kubrick as a filmmaker. I love Passive Glory, A Clockwork Orange, Dr. Strangelove, and Full Metal Jacket, but not this. At most, I like it, but only parts of it, not as a whole. I got more out of these films about space than this, and I know that is blasphemy to admit to the cinematic world, but I can't ignore how I feel. Maybe, just maybe in the future when I watch it again, I may change my mind for the better and finally see it as so many people do. But having watched it 3 times, I highly doubt it. Regardless, it's still a film that any cinema lover needs to see, and they have to decide on their own what they make of it.